Welcome everyone to another Alumni Chat Series. Here today we have Nick, who is an analyst at Piper Sandler in their chemicals coverage team, focusing on M&A. And I'm very excited about this session today because he has a quite unique and interesting story. Nick was an analyst in our program and was also part of our growth strategist team when we were growing Romero Mentoring as part of a startup. So I'm very excited to interview him today, and thank you for giving us your time, Nick. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing absolutely great. How are you?
Good, good. I'm actually excited to get you to share your story, share some words of perhaps encouragement to other students in the Analyst Prep Program. But why don't we start first by you telling us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, everyone. Yeah, I'm Nick. I'm a junior at college. I go to Northeastern University. I study finance and econ. I'm basically doing like 5-year program, but I'm currently in my third year. Yes, a little bit about like my personal interest in finance. During my freshman year, I didn't really know what I wanted to do because I've been jumping from, concentration to concentration. But then over my sophomore year, I met a lot of guys who were, a part of our investment club at Northeastern that is called SVF, and I started just watching them in the library, what they were doing, how they were analyzing stocks, how they were creating presentations. And then one day during my sophomore year, I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I want to do in my life. And then I just didn't know where to start because, like financial modeling, I wouldn't say that it's like hard, but it's a little tedious when you start. And also there are like a lot of resources on the internet, but you don't know which one is good. So I've been, I started talking to people, asking what program they would recommend to me to start. And that's how I ended up enrolling to Romero Mentoring program during my sophomore year. Yeah, so that's a little short story about me. If there are any questions, I'm also happy to answer them now.
Yeah, no, I know when you first came to our program as a sophomore, you had no experience in finance, no technical skills, but at the end, you were very advanced in terms of the sophistication of the models that you were creating. I know that you also were part of putting together the eBay case study with the due diligence, with doing the preliminary LBO modeling and the analysis. And that was actually one of your coverage companies as well. So how did the program help you most specifically prepared for your recruiting experience? Because I know you, of course, you're also an international student, which many of our Analyst Prep Program students are. How did you navigate recruiting after completing our program? What was that recruiting experience like?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it all starts from networking. Like, definitely, it all starts from networking for every single person. But then you also have to, like, before applying to the firm, right? You have to understand what you're actually chasing. Either you're chasing the firm's name, the group where you're going to, or the firm's culture, right? For me, it was more of a the group where I wanted to work, that is chemicals, and also the culture. So Piper has a extremely good and extremely friendly and helpful culture, and I knew that, and I've known that for a couple of months now, or I would say a year, because before applying to the firm, I've been networking, talking to a lot of people, asking how they feel about the firm. Would they, what would they recommend to do before applying? So And, I just applied as a regular applicant, submitted my resume, but then I had to start studying because, I had to learn a lot about the industry specifics, about the industry key trends before the first round of interview. Um, uh, but another thing, so talking about the Romero mentoring, right? As I mentioned before, I had to study a lot of industry specifics, but uh, due to Romero Mentoring Program, I could leave alone the technical preparation side, just because um, I feel like I'm strong enough, I'm confident in my technical knowledge, so that I don't need to spend a lot of time going through those 500 questions.
Mm.
So, and then basically, I studied a lot for the industry, and my first interview ended up being only industry-oriented questions. Yeah, but also to kind of leverage it, I sent before the interview, I sent my one of my models. Uh, I would say one of my most fancy models to them. So I sent them a quarterly model with a lot of analysis. Uh, you know so they can see, all right, so this kid knows how to deal with technicals, right? So this kid knows how to model. But then they would probably go and ask me like, hey, walk me through the model. And it's also very important because um, I know individuals who would send the models out to the HR, and then they would end up having an interview, and then interviewers would go like, okay, so walk me through the model, and the individual would not be able to walk them through the model just because he stole the model from somewhere else, from like the school fund or from the drive. So yeah, uh, be sure that you are on top of the model, right? So you know every single word, every single number, and you can break this number uh, until the last penny, right? So yeah,
Okay.
that's it.
Okay. So a couple of things to highlight, because you did mention quite a lot. I mean, so number one, be specific, know what you want, right? So you need to have that clarity. Number two, you mentioned networking. A lot of it starts really with networking. And then you mentioned that if you're applying for a specific role, typically you're applying for those roles based on the firm name, prestige, reputation. The other one you mentioned was the firm culture. That's very important. And then last but not least, what industry group or division of the firm you want to go at. So that all really comes down to knowing what you are aiming for. And I think that's a good strategy. That's one of the things that I do mention to many of our students is, before you start applying randomly to open opportunities on companies' websites, make sure you know what you want, right? Because if you get an interview for investment banking and you have no idea what investment banking is, and you apply to 100 different jobs and you get first round for an interview, you're probably going to fumble the ball. You're probably not going to do a good job, and you're not going to advance. So being very laser focused on what you are trying to get, and spend all of your time, all of your resources, really understanding the role, I think that increases your chances of success. And to elaborate a little bit more about that, you also mentioned that you focus on improving your technical skills, right? You leverage the Analyst Prep Program here with Romero Mentoring to improve your technical skills. And during the interview process, you sent out your model, which was on a quarterly basis. And then you were able to walk the person that was reviewing your model step by step on how it worked. So I think that's a really good example that other students in our program that are listening to this interview should definitely adapt and help them go through their own journey as well. So definitely network, definitely aim for what you want, be very laser focused, and improve your technical skills, because that's probably one of the best indicators of how much you want the job, how high of an interest you have in that role, because you're actually putting in the time to develop the technical skills. So how long have you been at Piper Sandler now?
I just started, so I've been there for only 1 week.
Okay, so you've
But
been there 1 week.
It was great.
Okay, so you've been there now for 1 week. Why don't you tell me what your typical day looks like so far? What time you wake up? What time you get to the office? What is the morning routine, the afternoon, and what you're expected to do so that our students can kind of have an idea of what they can expect when they become interns or when they end up being full-time professionals.
Right. Okay. So I'll be like completely honest here. So I started last week. So right after the Labor Day. So I started on Tuesday. Um, um, well, so I woke up at 6:45. I usually wake up at 6:45.
Wow.
I you know, go I dress, I go have like breakfast. I usually go to Starbucks or something. So in office is it's in New York, so an office is 30 minutes away from me, 30 minutes walk from me. So I would walk to the office, while walking, I would grab a coffee or, and a sandwich. Uh, then I would come I would come to the office at like 8:30. However, I have to be there at like 9, but it's better to come sooner than later. Um, well, so the first day was actually like meeting the team, right? The group, the analysts, the associate VPs, and the executive level. And then I started going over the compliance training material. Uh, there is a lot to go through, so I probably spent like 5 or 6 hours just going through the compliance material. Um, because it's not just like reading and watching videos. They're also like giving you like small tests to see if you're actually reading or listening to the material. So, but the questions are not hard. Then so once you've gone through all of these like compliance training thing, and then the um, other housekeeping questions like setting up your ID card, setting up your email, getting access to all of the financial platforms that the team is using, like CapIQ, Merger Market, and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, this is that basically was my first day, and around like 5 or 6 p.m. um I was able to go home just because I didn't have much to do, and I asked like if there is anything else I can help you guys with,
Mhm.
please let me know. If not, like I was wondering if I could leave, and they were like, yeah, definitely, because we're not staffing you today or even tomorrow, so you feel free to leave. So I left around like 6. Next day, I came to the office around the same time, 8:30. Um, so it was Wednesday. Mm, I, I was going over. Then on Wednesday, I was going over the new, it's called the new banker training.
Mhm.
Uh, there are a lot of great materials. Like honestly, like I've been able to find on the drive, the local drive
Yeah.
that the team uses, like so many great resources,
Mhm.
and it's so brilliant and wonderful that the company actually provides it to you for free. Because me as a student, I got used to the fact that, okay, so if you want to find something legit to study, or the course that is legit, you have to pay for this. I mean, investment in knowledge is the best, pays the best interest at the end of the day. So yeah, I've been going over this training material. Um, it's funny how they even had a section with necessary vocabulary. They had all of those fancy words
Mhm.
that I would use, the terminologies. They also had a ton of uh, like they had like 3 or 4 slides only focusing on Excel shortcuts, and 2 more slides focusing on PowerPoint shortcuts. But thankfully, I already know that, so I just refreshed my memory a little bit. It was great, and then going over the materials, how buy side, like, but M&A, buy side advisory
Mhm.
differs from M&A sell side advisory. Also, is extremely helpful how many stages they actually have, and this is that was my like basically the Wednesday, what I did on Wednesday. And on Thursday, right, I was like, okay, so I've gone through all the materials. I need to start working now. And as long as all the people in my group were pretty much staffed, right, and they were either at the middle of the project or at the end of the project, so they couldn't really throw me in somewhere. Just because I know what to do. You guys are at the middle or at the end. So then I started walking around the office, like, hey guys, just give me something to work on. Like, I really want to work on it. And then I had one of the associates came into me and he asked me to build the PIB. What PIB? PIB is a public information book. So it was also a very great experience because I had to work with Adobe. I've never worked with Adobe in my life, so I had to learn how to use Adobe. Also, it turned out to be a really good thing. I'd probably continue using that at school once I get back from mentorship. So I completed the PIB, and on Friday I was finally stopped on the actual project, and it's a buy-side M&A advisory.
Okay. Interesting. So you got to actually create your first PIB.
It's super tedious. Oh my God.
I mean, that's essentially investment banking jargon word for due diligence and putting together all the information on a company when you get staff on a new potential deal type of project. So you have to pull up their most recent quarterly filings, their annual reports, equity research coverage, what the street is forecasting, do a news run. I remember those things back of my days when I was an analyst, create a PIB. So I definitely remember that. So you are in the chemicals group. Tell us a little bit more about the chemicals group. What exactly is chemicals, and why did you decide to pursue industrial, specifically the chemicals group?
Yeah, absolutely. So to give the most transparent answers at first, so one of my family members, he works with commodities. He's a commodity trader, and I was thinking for a long time if I should pursue a career in commodity, but then I was like, I've been watching that person working, and I was like, probably I should do something that is a little bit related to the commodities, but it's not commodity, and it's very exclusive.
Okay.
So chemicals is extremely exclusive, and it's one of the fast-growing industries among in the world, let's say, just because the world and all of those financial banks, financial corporations, they're focusing a lot on ESG. They're moving towards the sustainability, the decarbonization, and stuff like that. And as long as Piper has the strongest group, the strongest chemical group in the world, I was like, hey, this is an extremely good opportunity. I knew that it would be competitive to get in, but anyway, so I studied for that, and I ended up having an internship. And yeah, so they're working with the whole world, right? So they have locations in London, they have locations in France. It's really all over the globe. So yeah, that's basically in a nutshell answer.
Yeah. No, I like it. I think this goes back to your previous point earlier about being laser focused. So you knew about chemicals, industrials, which is also related to commodities through a family member, right? So you're right into it. And you're right about there being a big push towards ESG and making many industries that are perhaps not sustainable, high pollution type industries become more environmentally friendly, being more sustainable in the long run. So there's a big push on ESG, and Piper Sandler is leading the way on that front through the chemical industry group. Makes sense. So I do see the connection. And again, I think it's a really good example for other students that are interested in pursuing investment banking or even equity research. Why do you want to do this specific job? But more importantly, why do you want to join this group? To share a little bit of my story, when I did M&A at Credit Suisse, there were only a handful of reasons why I wanted to do it, right? Number one, it was because it was a product group, and you get to develop very highly strong technical skills. So a lot of my technical skills in terms of modeling, I really developed it in the M&A group. Number two, it was the high level responsibilities that you were going to receive as a 21, 22-year-old straight out of college, getting the opportunity to work on billion-dollar type of transactions. I mean, that equates to someone perhaps working on Wall Street for 10, 15 years. There's some professionals on the street that never get that type of responsibility. So as an undergraduate student coming straight out of college, there's only a few limited opportunities out there that give you that type of responsibilities. Thirdly, was the quality of people that you get to work with, right? Very smart, highly driven professionals that will increase and accelerate your professional maturity in a very short period of time. So those were just a handful of the reasons why I wanted to work at Credit Suisse M&A. And then, of course, then you include the firm name, the culture, and it was close proximity to me, given that I went to Baruch. And Baruch is only a few blocks away from Credit Suisse. So I always pass by, I always walked by the firm. So it was another reason why I wanted to work there. But I think going back to the initial point of being focused and aim for what you want, so that you can spend the necessary time and resources and really understanding that, I think increases your chances of getting that opportunity. So thank you for sharing that, because this is just great examples. What do you think are perhaps some of the character traits that are essential to pursue a career in finance? And more so because you've already experienced it, right? You have your opportunity at Piper Sandler. You got the opportunity to work with me. So what characteristics or essential traits you think are important to pursue a career in this industry?
Okay, yeah, this is a very good question. So first of all, I think while applying, right, you have to be pretty humble, right? Because there are a lot of kids who are applying. Most of them are, you know, the the top of their class in school, right? And their like presence at the funds, at their presence at their funds in school, they probably have like super high GPA and stuff like that. So you have to be humble, right? You have to be, at the end of the day, you have to remain what you are. So you have to be a person. You don't have to be arrogant. Another thing, you have to know, you need to have a good communication skills. By saying good communication sense, and I say like hand gestures, skills. And when I'm saying that, I don't mean just, knowing how to talk, having a lot of vocabulary in your backpack. But you also have to know what phrases, what words you need to, uh, you know, put in while engaging the conversation, especially with the executive level people. And also, it's extremely important to have a good hand gestures. Those are been taught in school, and there are a lot of programs on the open source out there. Uh, because if you just send like this, just straight up, people would probably think that you're unconfident, right? Or you don't feel comfortable being with them. Um, uh, if you're like trembling or something, people would probably think that you're okay. So you're scared. You're also, you're not confident. But if your hand gestures are smooth, um, like on this side of the coin you have this, on the other side of the coin you have this. This is very important. And I've been watching older people like analysts and associate given presentations, and all of them are having the absolutely great communication skills. The way they speak, the way, they like, just the way they talk is brilliant. You can listen to them uh for many hours. They don't have those like buzzwords at all. They don't have So it's very important. Another thing that is very important is be a hardworking person. You literally like working in finance, you have to be a workhorse. Like everybody knows this because especially investment bankers, right? The M&A investment bankers or like restructuring investment bankers, they work they work 24/7. They work all nights, all days. Sometimes they work on Sundays, right? If they're extremely busy, they would work on Sundays. So you have to be dedicated to what you do. And also, I want to give one advice before I don't forget about it. So, right, when you join the firm and you're super passionate about it, you like everything, but it's been your like first week or second week. Don't rush to say that, okay, so I want to stay here full time. And I'm saying this because I had a conversation. I had a conversation with a Piper Sandler COO the other day. So, and he was like, just one advice, don't rush saying like, okay, so I want to stay here, I want to go there, I want to move to another industry group. Wait until you work 24/7 for 5 weeks straight and then say, that's what he told me.
I think that's really good advice. That's really good advice because I think there is a big disconnect or miscommunication or misperception, I think it's a better way to phrase it, of what the public and undergraduate students believe the reality of an analyst or working in finance to be is. And I know exactly what he's referring to because when I was an intern, after I received my full-time offer at Credit Suisse, I said to myself, okay, I can actually handle this. You know, I could work hard for one entire week and then the next week I'll have my weekends off. I could do this for 2 years. Yeah, I think this is manageable. But the experience of an intern is very different from a full-time analyst. So I'll tell you this, you know, when I was in my first year, we got to winter, January and February. I worked every single day and I was working 100 hours a week. That was when I hit kind of my limit and my breaking point because it kind of seemed like there's no, I don't see the light at the end of the tunnel because we have very tight deadlines. I'm working on 4 projects. I'm the analyst that have to do all of the heavy lifting. My associate is traveling on another deal. All of them are very busy. So I have to do all of the work. So you kind of have to be very organized and have a good control of your emotions in order to withstand that type of pressure. So the advice that he's giving you is because he's experienced it. We've all experienced it in the industry. And after you go through that experience, you're kind of like rebuilding yourself into a professional. And being a professional means that you get the job done. There's no excuses. You get the job done. Yeah. And it's the same thing when you are looking at it in sports, right? You could be watching LeBron James playing a basketball game. I mean, all of these professional athletes, they play with injuries, right? Some of them may have a messed up pinky. Some of them might have a substantial injury, but they still play it through, especially during playoffs, especially during championship high level of competition. They play through all that injury. So the same is expected of junior talent if you're working in a high competitive industry like investment banking, hedge fund, or private equity. So when he says that to you, it's because you haven't been battle tested yet. You have to go through the battle to see how you're going to feel at the end. And is this something that you kind of that you want to do? You'll be able to answer that question. But in terms of what you said about the characteristics that are essential for pursuing a career in this industry, you said, you know, remaining humble. I think that's actually a good trait. Being hardworking. I mean, that goes without saying that most of the candidates or people that finance attract are highly competitive. Many of our students have high GPAs. Some of them have near perfect GPAs. Some of them were valedictorians, captains of their basketball, hockey, football team. So we do get that type of candidates in our program. And many of them are also overachievers, right? Like you've mentioned, some of these kids are student presidents of their portfolio management club at their schools. So that's the type of personality and type of individual that high level finance attract, very high competitive people. Also having good communication skills, being engaged, and simply just being a good person all around. Because if you are someone that no one wants to work with, come review season, you might have all of the technical skills on check, right? You might be perhaps the most technically strong person within that group. But if you have a toxic personality, if no one wants to work with you, you better believe that that's going to show up during your semi-annual or annual review. And the first round of layoffs, you're probably going to be at the top of the list to be laid off. So it's very important to just be someone that is good to work well with. And all of that comes with your interpersonal skills, being very self-aware and just knowing how to communicate and work as a team. So I think those are good points that you touched on. How has been your experience, working in at school? Because I know you were part of a student managed fund at Northeastern, and Northeastern has a unique co-op program which extends the undergraduate experience to 5 years. So how has your experience as a student in the student, I think it's a student value fund, if I'm not correct, how has that experience been, and how has the skills that you gained there transfer over to you now being an intern over at Piper Sandler?
Well, yeah, it's also a great question. It's not about the skills only. It's also about the network, right? It's about networking in general, because all of the people who are in the fund, they're all pursuing careers in finance, but 80% of people in the fund, they're pursuing careers specifically in investment banking.
Mm.
So, in most of our alumni, right, they currently work at the top bulge bracket banks or top elite boutique banks, or I don't know, any other top industry coverage groups in other banks. So, and it's a great resource, because when you're applying to a certain bank and you have an alumni like an SVF or Northeastern alumni working there, you can just catch up with them and say, hey, what's up? How's life? How's the bulge bracket life? How's the and just have a pretty casual talk. And once the recruitment process starts, this guy would just I wouldn't say refer you, because I wouldn't trust people, and when they say you, okay, I'm going to refer you, because I've been referred tons of time, so many times. So, and they would just go like, hey, okay, yeah, so this is, say, like Nick, or this is Peter. Okay, so I know him. This guy's from my school. I work with him. He's a very hardworking, very dedicated, smart, knowledgeable, has a lot of skills, whatever. So number one is networking, extremely helpful. Second point is the skills, right? So we're all students. We're all at the age of 20, 21, 22, right? And we all compete. At this level, we compete very, very, very hard. Even though we're a part of one club, this is the most prestigious club at school, the fund, I would call it a fund. It's value-oriented fund. But we all compete, right? And all of us would probably spend nights in the Bloomberg Lab to create a better version of the presentation or the model, right? Because we want to stand out among other participants and analysts in the fund. So we would have a better rating, a better within the fund career trajectory, right? So you would be able to move on to the next level of your career in the fund faster than someone else. Also, this is important because at the end of the semester, we have different hedge fund managers coming in to see and evaluate our final pitches. So Also, like besides that, right? It may sound a little bit toxic, but it's not that much toxic. Just because at the end of the day, we're all friends, and yes, we're competitors within the fund, or when we're doing something, but away from the fund, we're all friends, and we would help each other. We would help each other, you know, how to model or how to build a presentation or how to use like shortcuts, whatever. Uh, so yeah, this is extremely helpful, is
Mhm.
networking skills and stuff
Mhm.
like that.
Yeah, I think having friendly competition is always healthy. It's always a good thing to have friendly competition because it you get to evaluate your skills, you get to evaluate where you are at with your peers, and then it keeps elevating your standards as well as you're getting to evolve and develop. And I know personally, you also have a competitive background in sports. I mean, you box,
Yeah.
right? So that's something that also carries to finance. And I also know that your recruiting process, like you've mentioned, you were referred, but in cases you didn't advance. How did you handle objections? How do you handle adversity when something doesn't go your way? How did you manage to keep focus and continue to move forward and persevere? Because I'm pretty sure before you got your offer at Piper Sandler, you must have applied to many other firms, and you weren't. I will say you didn't advance through the interview process. How did you handle that, right? Because that's the experience and the situation of many students. So how did you handle objections?
Um, yeah. So it's a great question. Again, I'll be completely honest. So, uh, I've been before applying to Piper, I've been applying to several other firms that are, uh, a little bit, um, they're on the tier list, right? They're a little bit lower than Piper, and I've been applying to them, but not to Piper or any other like um, elite boutique companies, just because I wasn't confident in myself, and I thought like, okay, so I'd better apply to smaller firms and then kind of move my career trajectory from that standpoint. Uh, so how the objections? Uh, uh, well, at first, when I got my first rejection, right, when I was first rejected, and when I was first, I would say, trapped by been promised that I'll be referred. Uh, so it was honestly hard because I'm I'm personally very honest and very dedicated person, because if I tell something that I'm gonna help them, help him or her, I would help them. At the end of the day, I'll always help them. Like if this person, for example, needs to use like any of my subscription based accounts for like a week or so, I would always give them. Like it's it's nothing for me. Like if this person wants to learn, um, I'll let them learn. But then when people are like betraying, they're saying, okay, so we're gonna refer you, or hey, I've already referred you, and the VP is gonna contact you in the next 2 days, and the VP never reaches you out, and then you find out that this person has never talked to VP and he even forgot your name.
Mm.
So at the beginning it was hard. I was like, hey, what the fuck is going on? All right, and then but then I started talking to more and more people, and guys would just go like, "Hey, this is normal. Like, dude, this is normal. Just don't take it for granted. It's normal. Just get used to this. There are gonna be a lot of situations like this. Just keep on moving, keep on going further." Um, Also another example. So um, that's about like the self confidence and a little bit of self esteem from my end. Uh, so like right after completing Romero Mentoring Program, reading a lot of finance textbooks, having a lot of technical background, you're applying to the firm, and then you're at your seventh round of interview, and then they're just rejecting you. and you have no understanding why. But okay, so in my case, it's because I'm international, and most of the companies, they don't want to deal with international kids. So you have to be not 10 out of 10, you have to be 11 out of 10 to kind of get a job. So I'm not saying that I'm 11 out of 10, but um, I know how to what. All right, so understand me right. I know how to sell myself. I know what skills uh, that I acquire I can sell, and I'm confident in them. So you got to know that. But yeah, that's okay. You just have to deal with the rejections, with the traps, with when people betray you. Um, it's life, and it happens not only to us who are in their 20s or even 30s. It also happens to people who are in their 40s, 50s, 60s, who have lived their life, and they're still, the longer you live, the more you learn at the end of the
Yeah,
day.
yeah. Now, look, thank you for sharing that. So I guess the way that I would summarize it is, one, definitely have self-confidence, keep moving forward, right? Number two, if you are an international student, just make sure that you have to be technically strong, and you need to have strong interpersonal skills, right? Because if the person's going to sponsor you and give you an opportunity, you have to be a top tier quality candidate. And the only way that you're going to do that is if you spend the right amount of time in improving yourself. You got to go to work. You have to work on yourself before someone else can give you that opportunity. If they don't see in you what you see in yourself, what steps have you taken to prove that you are a top tier quality candidate, right? Think about it. It's kind of like being you incorporated, you Inc. How much R&D have you done on your professional skills? How much capital investment have you done in developing your technical skills? How much have you invested in your education to improve your communication, your speaking, and have very clear and concrete examples of steps that you've taken to be that top tier candidate? So you have to work on yourself first. And the last one is, you need to know how to sell yourself, right? Investment banking is really a selling business. You are in the advisory business. You're communicating with other high-level professionals that are facing some challenges with their organization. In this case, we can talk about a CEO or a board of directors. The company needs to raise capital. The company's looking to be acquired. Maybe there's a hostile takeover. How are you going to help them with that situation? What type of advice are you going to be able to give them and sell your recommendation on top of that? So all of those skill sets, all of those point of view are things that as a student, you have to be aware of, and you just have to go to work. So I think that you, Nick, with your examples, you could be a great case study on how to persevere and keep moving forward. I mean, you are at a really good place, at a really great firm, and we have other alumnus as well. Piper Jaffra. Yes. Have you communicated with Vishal? Have you reached out to him?
So it's interesting. I had because we have several floors in the building. Right? Our headquarters are in Minneapolis, but New York is the second biggest office. So, and we've been walking around the other floor. Right? We had like a floor tour, and then I asked a girl who works with me. She's an analyst. Like, hey, I see we have a common connection on LinkedIn. So it's Vishal. Like, where's he working? And she was like, yeah, he's in restructuring. And the other day, so we went up to the 39th floor, like having the restructuring, meeting the restructuring team, and the Vishal was there. But I couldn't really talk to him just because he was in the call. Him and his colleague, they were in the call. They were just, hey guys.
I can imagine he's getting distracted, or out of nowhere you get stampede with a new class of interns coming in. It's like, hey guys, keep it down. We're actually doing work over here. We're not here to give you guys a tour. Well, you should definitely reach out to him internally. I'm pretty sure once you're there, you can definitely reach out to him and grab a coffee, and he can share his experience, because I know he did the program before you did. But that's one of the unique things about the Analyst Prep Program, that as we continue to move forward, as we continue to grow, you have an extended network. across the industry of other professionals that have completed our program, and now you have a shared common experience, and you can use that to kind of break the ice and reach out to them and communicate and expand your network. Great. So before we wrap this up, any final comments, any final words of advice to other students that are in the Analyst Prep Program, or just other students that are not in the program that are thinking of pursuing a career in finance? Any last words of advice?
Yeah. So I'll give two. So the one will be specifically or oriented, directed to the Romero mentoring students. So guys, when you are going over the program, right, you definitely have to study hard. But after completing the program, you'll be like, hey, I know so much stuff. Like I can do whatever. I can, ace any technical interview. That's not right. There are a lot of tiny little hidden traps that you can fall into. Quick example. I was applying to another firm. They are operating as a private credit and private equity firm. And I was in my 5th round of interview. And I sent the model to the interviewer. And he was like, hey, walk me through. And then the guy was like, all right, so the model looks great, but where are the economic scenarios? Where are the economic sensitivities? I was like, what do you mean? Like, what? Like, no, I've never heard of them. I was like, okay, so what are you talking about? And he was like, where's at least inflation kicker? I was like, what is inflation kicker? Like, I know what inflation is, but what is the inflation kicker and how I input it into the model? So, I mean, always develop. Like, don't stop at the point where you just complete the program. Always go up and always develop. And it's good to be in your school funds or your school investment organizations, because you have like at least 30 kids in the fund, and everybody can share their skills, experience, whatever, and then you grow, you learn, right? And then you just have to say, if you don't know something, like if you hear a terminology like inflation kicker, you go to Google, and then you just type it in what it is, or saying like there are because I participate in investment case competitions each year, and I see what other teams like from other schools they do, and so some guys would probably do like a merger of equals, right? This is a very sensitive type of analysis. Like I would not touch it, and there are so many reasons why I would not touch it, but they do this. And it's also important, so you guys know how to do this. So once you like engage into the conversation where people talk about the merger of equals, so you can keep up the conversation. So you always one advice: always develop, always learn, always grow. The second thing, and that's an advice that was given to me before I even got enrolled into the college. So I was like 15 or 16. I have a friend, he was, by that time, he was a junior in Georgetown, and he actually ended up having a full-time offer at Blackstone in their, real estate group as a private equity analyst. And he told me, like, so imagine a plane, and the plane, when it's taken off, when it's flying in a neutral position, and when it's descending. So it's like either this, or this. You always have to be like this, angle up. Always like this. When you're like this, you're not growing, you're not developing. When you're like this, you're growing and you're developing. Yeah, and always try to be not 10 out of 10, but 11 out of 10. I'm not 10 out of 10. I'm not 11 out of 10, but I'm going to do those results. I'll try to do my best to be there. So, and also, if you have any questions, you see my name, please feel free to reach out to me. I'll be happy to chat. Zoom call, phone call, whatever works for you, and share my experience with you, or help you navigate through the application process. Yeah.
Great. I think that's great advice. Always develop, always grow. It's really part of our guiding principles. Always learn, always innovate, and just continue to develop. I couldn't have said it better myself. Nick, I really appreciate you taking the time to be part of our Alumni Chat Series and sharing your story. So again, thank you. And for those of you in the Analyst Prep Program, I think he shared an enormous amount of knowledge, information, and things that you should start developing, especially as you're going through the program. So with that being said, I'll end it here. Thank you, and I'll see you guys on the next one. All right.